Now let's have a look at this question. The number of votes not cast for the PNC party. Please remember this. Not cast for the PNC party increased by 25% with respect to the previous assembly polls, and the PNC party lost by a majority twice as large as that by which it had won the assembly polls. So there is a party which had won last time. So last time this party has won, and this time this party got defeated. Why did this happen? Last time it won and this time it is getting defeated. Why? Because the votes against this, the number of votes not cast for the party. So the number of votes not cast for the party means all those votes go to the other party. So this time the votes going to the other party increased by 25% if a total of 2,60,000 people voted each time, and the only two party exists, only two parties are there. How many voted for the PNC party in the previous assembly polls? So two parties are there. So two polls have taken place. So let's name them previous, and this one as current assembly polls, and only two parties exist. So one is PNC, so let's call them PNC, and the other as opponent or other. Only two parties exist, please remember. Now what do we know? The number of votes not cast for PNC party. So those votes which are not cast for PNC parties, that means those votes go to the other. So basically you can say that in the current assembly, this party got 25% more votes. Now 25% is one fourth of anything. So you can assume that vote received by this party, the other party, in the previous election was 4x. So this time this party is going to receive 25% more, because it is said vote not cast for PNC. So votes not cast for PNC means votes cast for the other. So 4x will now become 5x, 25% increase. Total number of voters 2,60,000. So 2,60,000, out of this 4x are voting for others. So remaining must be voting for PNC party. Similarly, this time in the current assembly election, the remaining must have voted for PNC party. Now what was the result? In the last election, PNC party had won. So what was the victory margin of last election? So victory margin of the last election. So PNC has won. It is written that which it had won. So last time it had won. So this is what PNC receives. This is what its opponent received. So how many more PNC is receiving? So this is what PNC received, and this is what its opponent received. So this is the difference of vote. So this comes out to be equal to 2,60,000 minus 8x. Similarly, loss margin. This time PNC has lost. So what is the loss margin? So if PNC has lost, that means this is the winner. So this time loss margin would be equal to 5x minus 2,60,000 minus 5x. So this is equal to 10x minus 2,60,000. Now what is being said? This time it has lost by a majority twice as large. Majority means the difference. So this difference is twice as large as the previous difference. So it means this difference 10x minus 2,60,000. So this difference is twice as large the previous difference. So 2 times of 2,60,000 minus 8x. So if you see, if you switch sides, so 2 into 8 minus 16, so 26x is equal to 3 into 2,60,000. So from here, x should be equal to 3 into 2,60,000 divided by 26. So x comes out to be equal to 30,000. What is the question? How many voted for the PNC party in the previous assembly poll? So x comes out to be 30,000. So basically we have to calculate this value. How many voted in the previous election for PNC? So 2,60,000 minus 4x, that is 1,20,000. So answer is 1,40,000. Now let's have a look at this question. It's similar, very similar to the previous one. In the recently concluded 600 people voted on a referendum. So referendum was recently concluded in which 600 people voted. So referendum is just like an election. So in referendum, you have to basically choose either yes or no. So referendum is conducted on a certain issue. So only two choices are given. Either you support it or you oppose it. But after some discussion, the opponent increases by 150%. So that means first the referendum was done, but again it was conducted, just like re-election. Again the referendum was conducted and it was observed that the opponent increased by 150. So opponent means those who are saying no. So 2 times referendum had been conducted. So let's call them first referendum and second referendum. So some people will say yes in the referendum. Some people will say no in the referendum. So what do we know? In the second referendum, the opponents increased by 150%. So that means, let's suppose here the opponents were, let's say X. So here the opponents increased by 150%. So increased by 150%, that means X plus 1.5x. So finally, those people who were saying no, they became 2.5x. So total 600 people have voted. So out of 600, if X say no, the remaining must be saying yes. In the first referendum, similarly in the second referendum, how many people would have said yes? So 600 minus this much, 2.5x. Now what happened? What is the difference between the first referendum and the second referendum? The motion was then rejected by a majority 2 times as great that by which was formally passed. So here it was passed. Passed means the number of people saying yes was greater than the number of people who said no. In this case, it has failed. Failed means the number of people who said no were greater than the number of people who said yes. So it is being said that in this case, the margin is double the margin of first case. So let's solve it. What is the margin of this case? These people have won. So 600 minus x is greater than x. So this is the margin here. So the second margin is 2 times this margin. That means if you multiply this with 2, then you get the second margin. What is the second margin? These people have won. So 2.5x is greater. So you have to subtract from this. So 2.5x minus 600 minus 2.5x. So if you solve this, you will get the value of x. So let's do that. So 600 minus 2x into 2, 1200 minus 2x is equal to 2.5x minus minus plus. So 5x minus 600. So from here, so this will be 4x, not 2x, because minus minus 2x, 2 into 2, 4. So if you switch sides, so 9x is equal to 1800, which would mean x is equal to 200. Now what is the question? How many people voted against the initial referendum? So how many people voted against the initial referendum? So x is equal to 200. Let's say this question. 10% of the voters did not cast their vote in an election between two candidates. So only two candidates are there in an election. So 10% voters did not cast their votes. 10% of the votes polled were found invalid. Okay, the successful candidate got 54% of the valid votes and won by a margin of 1620 votes. The number of voters enrolled in the voter list was equal to what? Now you see, let the total number of voters be equal to x. Then you have to calculate 10% of the voters, because as per the question you are required to do so. Also you are required to calculate the 10% of the remaining. So basically 10% of 10%. So 2 times you have to do 10%. So take a strategy, take a smart dummy value. So assume total voters, to make calculations easier, total voters, instead of assuming 100x, this time I will assume 1000x, because I have to calculate 10% of 10%. So 2 iterations. So that's why I want number of zeros to be more to handle calculations safely. I could have chosen 10,000x as well, but I think 1000x is sufficient. So these are some smart strategies that will help you avoid getting into dirty decimals and all. So total voters 1000x. Now what has happened? 10% did not cast their vote. So these people did not cast their vote at all. 100x, they have not cast their vote at all. It means 900x people have cast their vote. Out of these 900, 10% of the votes were found invalid. So 90x votes were invalid. So 810 were valid. 810x valid. Now the successful candidate got 50% of the valid votes. So successful candidate got 50% of this. That means the other candidate got 46%. 54, one person, remaining 46, the other person. Valid votes 810x. So the margin is 1620 votes. So what is the difference in terms of percentage? 8%. So you can say 8% of 810x should be equal to 1620. Isn't it? Because 50% of valid votes, 46% of valid votes. So 8%. So this is where the margin will be counted. So it means 8 by 100 into 810x is equal to 1620. Now 81 twos are 1620. So this 0 cancels and this cancels 2 times. So x comes out to be equal to 25. So we have assumed the number of total voters to be equal to 1000x. So number of voters 1000x, which is equal to 25,000. So you can see, if you make smart assumptions, give smart dummy values, so you can avoid getting into decimals. Now let's see this one. In the opinion polls held during August, 60% of the respondents favored Congress party, while the rest favored Lotus party. It was found in the September polls that 10% of the Congress supporters switched their preference to Lotus, while the same percentage of Lotus supporters also switched their preference to Congress. So what percentage of the electorate should now switch their preference from Congress to Lotus party so that both political parties are at par? So basically, an opinion poll was conducted in 2 months, in August and in September. So you have data for 2 different opinion polls. One was conducted in August, the other was conducted in September. So this opinion poll was based on 2 parties, Congress and Lotus. So Congress and Lotus. In August, 60%. So to avoid getting into decimals or percentage, take some dummy values. So let's assume total number of people who were surveyed to be 1000, for the sake of simplicity, 1000. So 60% of the respondents favored Congress. In August, 60% were favoring Congress. So 60% of 1000, 600. That means remaining 400 were favoring Lotus party. Now what has happened? In September, it was found that 10% of Congress supporter switched their preference. So 10% from here, so 10% of here, go and join this group. Similarly, same percentage of Lotus supporter also change party. So some people who are supporting Lotus party will go and join Congress party. So 10% each. So the new data, from 600, 60 people are joining other parties. So 600 minus 10% of 600. So 60 people are leaving and 40 people are joining. Fine. What about Lotus? What happened to the total strength of Lotus party in September? Originally there were 400. So 10% people are leaving. That means 40 people are leaving and 60 people are joining. So the final data for September. So 580 people remain in Congress party and 420 people remain in Lotus party. So this is the final data for September. Question is, how many more people should join? How many people should leave Congress and join Lotus so that both these party become at par? So what percentage of people should leave Congress and join Lotus? So Congress now has 580. Lotus now has 420. So if you want them to be at par, so what is the total sum? So total sum is 1000. You want them to become 500, 500. So you want 80 people to leave the party. 80 people should leave the party and go and join the other party. So percentage required, or required percentage is 80 is what percentage of 580? Because you want both the parties to have equal number of members. So now Congress has 580 You want that to become 500. So you want 80 people to go. So 80 is what percentage of 580? So 80 by 580 into 100. So this 0 and this 0 can be cancelled. So both these can be cancelled by 2. So 40 by 29. So 400 by 29. So this comes out to be 1, 3, 13.7 something. So 13.8 out of the given options. We have to find the approximate. So 13.8 is the correct option. Let's have a look at this one. A food processing unit received fresh consignment of berries from Himachal Berry Corporation containing a kilogram of berries. A kilogram. After analysis, these berries were found to contain 99% water. After 15 days, sample of berries from the same lot was found to contain 98% water. What must be the weight of same lot at that time? Now, what is this question? It won't make sense to a few people, but understand what is being said here. Fresh berries. So if you buy fresh berries or fresh grape, so content of water in them is very high. So let's suppose berry. So berry has two parts. One part pure water, the other part fruit, pure fruit, and the other part is water. So if you allow this berry to remain in storage for few days, what happens? It begins to dry. So if it begins to dry, this pure fruit portion, it remains the same. The quantity of pure fruit remains the same. Only the water evaporates. The water keeps on becoming less and less. If you dry it, if you keep it in sun, or if you keep it in storage, so slowly and gradually the water gets on evaporating. But the point to be noted here is the quantity of fresh pure part, edible part, or the fruit part remains the same. This remains the same. It is not going anywhere. So now let's see. So as per this question, there was fresh consignment. So 2 times the consignment was observed. So one when it was fresh, the other time it was observed was after drying, after that got dried. So in fresh consignment, what did you observe? You observed that fruit, so let's call it fruit and water, watery part. So water was 99%. So 99%, this was 1%. What was the total quantity of sample? Total quantity of sample was A kgs. After drying, you observed that now fruit and water, they have changed in terms of percentage. Now water represents only 98%. So if water is representing 98%, that means the remaining 2% is occupied by fruit part. So this part. Now please remember, this quantity and this quantity is same. This part has remained same quantity. Question is, what must be the weight of the same lot at this time? So here we want to understand what is the weight now. What is the weight now as per this given information? So let's suppose, let the weight be equal to B. Let this be equal to B kgs. So we have to express B in terms of A. Now what can be said? Fruit, pure fruit part remains same. This is the key. It remains same. So what? It means 1% of A. So from here you can say that 1% of A should be equal to 2% of B, because now entire sample is B kgs. Out of B kgs, 2% is fruit. So 1% of A should be equal to exactly equal to 2% of B. So percentage and percentage will get cancelled, both are mathematical operations. So 1 into A is equal to 2 into B. So from here B is equal to A by 2. So B kgs means A by 2 kgs. This is the question. Let's see the next one. Fresh grapes contain 75% water by weight, while dried grapes contains 25% water by weight. So almost the same question. So two types of grapes, fresh and dried. So in fresh grape, there is one fruit part and then there is watery part. 75% water by weight. So this is 75% means the other 25% is pure part, pure fruit. In dried grapes, 25% is water. So in dried grapes, water is only 25%. It means the remaining 75% must be pure fruit. Pure fruit. And drying means drying affects only the quantity of water. This pure fruit part is not going anywhere. It will remain the same as before. What is the question? What is the weight of dry grapes available in 60 kgs of fresh grape? That means if this sample was of 60 kgs, how much did it become after drying? So how many kgs? So let this be A kgs. So you kept 60 kgs for drying and this 60 kgs got converted into A kgs. So now we have to find the value of A. So what can you say? Fruit, pure fruit part is same, quantity is same. So 25% of 60 kgs, 25% of 60 kgs must be exactly equal to 75% of A kgs. Now percent and percent can be cancelled, both are mathematical operations, multiplicative mathematical operations. So even if you will solve it, they are going to get cancelled. So you can say that 25 into 60 is equal to 75 into A. So from here A is equal to 25 and 75 can be cancelled easily. So A is equal to 20 kgs. This is the final answer. Let's see next one. Fresh grape contain 80% water. So fresh grapes contain 80% water. So water and pure part. So 80% is water, that means pure part is 20%, while dry grapes contain 10% water. So dry grape contains 10% water, so water is 10%. That means the other 90% is pure part. If weight of dry grapes is 500 kgs, so this weight is 500 kgs, then what is the total weight when it was fresh? So when it was fresh, let the total weight was x kgs. So the pure part is exactly same, quantity is exactly same in both the samples. So what can you say? 20% of x. So 20% of x must be exactly equal to 90% of 500 kgs. So you can cancel percentages. You can cancel 0 and 0. So from here 2 into x is equal to 9 into 500. So this 2 and 250. So 250 into 9, so 2250.